In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Please be seated. Well, apart from it being not Super Bowl, Grey Cup. Is it Grey Cup?
Yes.
Sunday? Grey Cup Sunday.
Yeah.
It's also the last Sunday in our church calendar. Right? Next Sunday is the first Sunday of Advent. And then, so next Sunday, it begins all again, the whole year. And we begin again to trace the life, the work, the meaning of Christ in our lives. And we follow Jesus' ministry throughout history, yet again. And ask ourselves how Jesus calls us to continue that ministry in our own individual lives and the life of the church. This year gone by, 2019, we have witnessed lots of things. Globally, locally, fires and floods, betrayals, reckless living, both far removed from us and very close to home. Many of you have asked me at the back of the church when we shake hands, with pain and sorrow in your voice, what is happening to our earth? What is happening to us? In our church family this year, we've lost some people who are dear to us. Some have died, some have just left. And we've seen new life, births, baptisms, new people joining our family, a new assistant curate. And here we are today at the celebration of Christ our King. And we are confronted for this day with a passage from Luke that paints a gruesome picture of the crucifixion of our Lord. Why this passage for such a celebration of Christ our King? Surely, you say, there must be a more upbeat, triumphant passage that we could focus our attention? Something from Revelation, perhaps? There before me was a throne in heaven, and the one who sat there had the appearance of jasper and carnelian. A rainbow encircled the throne. From the throne came flashes of lightning, rumbles, and peals of thunder. In the center of the throne were 4 living creatures, and every creature in heaven and on earth and under the earth and on the sea was singing, "To him who sits on the throne and to the Lamb be praise and honor and glory and power forever and ever." But no. Instead, we are given for our contemplation the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, a display of human sin and malice and corruption at its finest. A scene that, if we bear with it, reveals the heart of God. And it reveals Jesus' own understanding of what his role is as Lord and King of his subjects. If we stay with it and enter into the paradox, we can perhaps see why this scene fills us with hope and the confidence to approach the throne of such a king as this. So Jesus is taken to the outer limits of town. He's raised up shamefully above a crowd of witnesses. A sign stating his crime is posted above his head, just above the crown of thorns that pierce his skull. King of the Jews. He's not alone out there on the hill. A large number of people followed him, so the story goes, as he was led to the place called the Skull. And a very mixed bag of people have come to witness his coronation. We know from a few verses earlier in Luke's account that there were women present who mourned and wailed for him. Except for these women, whose silence is noteworthy. Except for them, everyone, it would seem, has something to say, has a question for Jesus. Questions. I'd just like to stop the story for a moment and just talk a little bit about questions and what questions are. As I see it, at least from this passage, there are three types of questions that one can ask. Some questions, they get us into a whole bunch of trouble, don't they? They can shake things up a bit. They can seem to kind of lead us off track. And answers seem to lead to more questions. But this is actually a good thing. Engaging in these types of questions is to engage in life, is to be very present. I have a group of 8 young people, and we have met a few times. And let me tell you, they have some pretty crazy, big questions. And I have a little bit of anxiety when I meet with them and they ask these questions, because I wonder, I don't really have an answer to this one. And maybe the answer that I have is going to lead us to more questions, and then chaos is going to ensue, and we're going to end the session thinking, or our time together, these months together, we're going to end it thinking, what do we believe? And then their parents are going to go somewhere else, and I'm going to lose my job. Such questions, they bear the intention of seeking truth. And such questions, received with an open mind and an open heart, they can diffuse violence, create connections, and lead to reconciliation with ourselves and with our God. Then there are a type of questions that you might find in the Psalms, forms of lament, much like what I have been privy to from you this year, some of you. Out of the depths I cry to you, O Lord. Why are you so far from the words of my groaning? Why have you forsaken me? Honest questions. They presume a trusting relationship between the asker and the receiver. And for those of you out there who are parents, you know that when your child, when they were little, and even when they're grown up, when they come to you ranting and raving in your home, it's because we've been told they feel safe enough to do so. Honest questions. And then there are the questions that are used to disregard truth and incite violence. Questions that bear with them the intention to disconnect the asker from the receiver. And they are posed from a stance of judgment. Have you ever been in the midst of an argument? Maybe I'm just speaking for myself. And you can feel anger stirring up, and it burns inside of you, and it almost creates a physical barrier between you and your opponent. And you find yourself asking things like, oh yeah? Well, you can tell me, what gives you the right to say such and such? Or, who do you think you are? If we listen closely to the questions presented in the gospel story this morning, we hear these 3 types of questions in this order. First, the questions that serve to disregard the truth, disconnect, and stir up violence. The leaders ask the people, can't the Messiah, God's chosen one, save himself? The soldiers asked Jesus, who are you? If you're who the sign says, why can't you come down off of that cross? Second, those honest, gut-wrenching questions wherein we cannot but acknowledge the precariousness of our humanity. The criminal on Jesus' left asks, if you were the Messiah who came to save for the love of God, what about me? Can't you save me? And finally, the questions that, in an effort to seek truth and understanding, they often shake things up a bit, and they present more questions. The criminal on Jesus' right asks of his partner on the left, "Do you fear God?" And depending on the answer to that question, can you take responsibility for your own guilt? Leading to an even more difficult question. And this is the one that is really getting to the point the author of Luke is trying to make. And it's one way of understanding the power of the cross in drawing us into God's love. He asks, "Don't you see? You and I, not he, deserve this." There is a lot of violent talk going on at the foot of the cross. Lots said to deflect culpability off of oneself and onto Jesus. And there's lots of lamenting going on, spoken and silent. And there's some searching for truth and understanding happening as well, with a goal towards justice and reconciliation. And from the cross, no wrath or judgment, no flashes of lightning. Jesus receives all these questions with a posture, an open posture of love and forgiveness. A loving submission to the outpouring of the human condition in whatever form it may take. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do or say. This is the throne of our King. And then there is silence. Silence from the throne of our King. For days. And then on the third day, there is resurrection. The ruler of this world, who held us in the grip of sin and death, is overthrown. The world is turned upside down. Don't ask me how. Well, okay, don't ask me how, but we could be here for a very long time, because one answer could lead to another question. God's ways are higher than our ways, his thoughts greater than our thoughts, and that's the faith on which we stand. Our prayers, our secret prayers, the prayers that sometimes we don't even know that we're praying, or we tidy them up a bit, we edit them. Our prayers are a mishmash of these questions, all of these questions. Accusatory questions, spoken, or rather hissed, on the outskirts of town, on the outer edges of our consciousness, where all seems hopeless. Cries of lament, as the situations in which we find ourselves collide with God's kingdom, and we ask desperately to be rescued from temptation. Questions that echo the longing in our hearts to make sense of it all, to bring meaning to our lives. Joan read to us this morning from the passage in Jeremiah. You said your people, those who trust in you, will live in safety. You told us you were our King. What are the questions that you bring at the end of this year? If you are new to the Christian faith, and you're not sure what you believe, what is that burning question that keeps you from making that step towards the throne of the King? Bring that question to God. Shout it from your rooftop or from your balcony. Whisper it on your knees. And if you have been at this faith business for quite some time, what is the question that still remains unanswered? Is there a question you still dare not ask? Bring it to the throne of your King, and risk being led into equally more difficult questions. And if you're in a place of consolation, you have no difficult questions burning in you, then I wonder if a good question to your King is, what is the next right thing to do as we enter the next church calendar year? But I charge all of you in this season of Advent, I charge you to be honest with your questions to God. Not to grumble with one another about the state of the world and the church and all the rest of the mess, but to turn to the throne of our King, confident in one thing, that you will be received with love. And praise God, we are not called to do this struggle alone. Right? God calls us to work things out together in community. If you're part of a small group that meets regularly to pray and read the scriptures, dare to be honest in that group. And if you aren't part of a small group, but you'd like to be, that you need someone to wrestle with these questions, but see me. Perhaps there's a group waiting to be formed. And feel free to share your struggles with Byron and myself. And I'm not suggesting that here I have the answers, but it is our duty and our joy to be with you in that place of unknowing. Advent next week is a time of silence, where our questions often hang in pregnant air, waiting for the light to pierce the darkness. Let us pray. Lord God, thank you for the enormous love you have for us, pouring out to us from the cross. Help us to trust that love. As we lay our questions at your feet, give us in turn the wisdom that sits by your throne. For she knows and understands all things. May she guide us wisely in our actions and guard us with her love.